Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. It is just over 2 weeks before the Toronto Bonsai Society Spring Show and Sale. So I'm still in the process of getting trees and displays ready for the show. I did go out and buy a picture frame. It's a plastic frame, but it's a nice one, to try it out with the bench, and I think that'll work quite well. So I can either put sand and gravel and moss on the ground here, which I think would look really nice. I think it would tie everything together. I was also thinking of another display here. I have these dividers that I got at the thrift store, and I thought, I have the bench here. Maybe I could have a bonsai tree, and then on the far side of that, maybe another display, something like this, where I'm just highlighting one tree with the dividers in the background. I think that would look cool too. Years ago, I bought this ceramic stand from the thrift store. It's got a shiny white glaze on it. Quite a nice little stand. I have never been able to find a tree that looks good on this at all. In all my years, nothing suits a white stand. Then I was thinking maybe my cedars root over rock, because the rock has some white in it, and I thought, well, let's try it out. Maybe it'll match. So I'll show you what it looks like. Here is what it looks like on the stand. There it is. So I think it's pretty good. It's the only pot tree stand combination I've ever found that comes close to matching. So I think the white rock kind of goes nice with the stand. I think it's a good combination. It makes the pot stand out. And it certainly doesn't take away from the trees at all. I think your eye goes to the green trees. And so maybe that's a possibility for the show. These trees are filling out quite nicely. I think in a couple of weeks, I think they'll be looking pretty good, I hope. I'm also thinking of displaying my bird's nest spruce here, but I don't have a stand for it. I tried out all the stands I had and nothing suited it at all. I didn't have the right size stand and certainly nothing the right color. So it's a bit of a dilemma. Now, I could make my own stand and just kind of tar it up so it's black. Might look good. I think with this tree, I'll show you what I'm thinking of the colors. The tree is in a handmade pot made by Sophie. I think the tree looks quite nice in this pot. So the color of the pot is a reddish color, and it's a reduction firing in the kiln. So all the oxygen is taken out of the kiln, it's burned out, and then it kind of gets almost a metallic color to the pot, which kind of matches. It's got colors of the bark in it, that sort of grayish color. The red color of the pot matches the wounds on the tree where they're healing over, kind of rolling over. So there's some red elements in the tree. So I'm thinking for a stand. If you notice at the base of the tree, it's kind of dark, maybe because it's moist there, but it's almost like a blackish color. So I think a stand would look good in a dark, almost like darker than walnut color, would look good. It's possible a stand that's lighter that would match the deadwood color could look good. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that would look good with this tree. So the stand has to be the right size. It should elevate the tree a bit, because this tree is not a tall tree. You need to get the tree up to a good viewing height when it's on a table at a show. So I kind of need a tall stand that's not too big, not too delicate looking, and maybe is a dark color, so it tones with the base of the trunk there. So it's kind of a tall order. I may have to make something myself. I have made a simple stand in the past, just a piece of spruce with some feet under it, stained it up with the black tar, and I'm thinking something like that might look okay if I get the right size and proportions for this tree. So I'm going to get that stand out and try it out to see just what the color scheme looks like if I'm on the right track with that dark color or not. So I'm going to try that out now. Here is a look at the stand with the tree. I certainly think the dark color looks good with it. Now this stand is quite large. It could even be a little darker. It's certainly, yeah, definitely could be darker. I'm wondering, could a stand this size work if I put an accent plant? Let me try it. So I think, you know, the tree would have to go to the other side here and an accent plant here, because this tree is kind of, well, the windblown part is looking towards this direction. So let me try an accent plant with it. What would look good? A stone would look good. Some kind of a, you know, cool rock here might look nice. It can't be very large. Let me try my little jasmine. How does that look? I don't like that with it. The two do not go together. I've got like a blue pot, a leafy looking plant. Yeah, that doesn't go at all. I think the pot height is too close to each other. Yeah, that doesn't suit it at all. Let me try my rock planting. It's maybe better, but it doesn't look, it looks like two separate items placed together on the same table. This doesn't complement the main tree at all. Yeah, that doesn't work. Plus I have like the warm reds and then the cool grays and stuff over this side, so it just doesn't tie together at all. Maybe a reddish colored stone? How does that look? That's the wrong red color. It's too bright, too pinkish. Definitely doesn't match. What about... Oh. That's the wrong red too. Too bright. Too close to the same. How does that color look with it? That color looks nice. I'll show you a close-up of that. Here's a small pot, also made by Sophie, that I think is pretty nice with it. If there was a little, maybe just even moss in there, might look good. Trying to see if I have any other color pots of Sophie's that would look good. There's a glazed one. No, I don't think that works. Here's this color. That doesn't work either. It's a smaller one of the same kind of pot. Too small. And here's another glazed one, and it doesn't match anything. So it would have to be this pot with some moss in it, I think. If I were to use a big table. I don't think I need a table this big for this tree. I think it just overpowers the tree. So I'm wondering if I should make another table. I don't think I need the table this thick. I think that's too thick. It's also too close to the thickness of the pot. Okay, let me try out some different options here. I've turned the table on its end to try out the size. That could be a nice size as far as the table length. Again, it's too thick. Yeah, definitely the smaller table brings out the tree in the pot. It doesn't get lost in the table like the big, a large size table just makes the tree look smaller. So I definitely need the right size table, something I would say half that thickness, about that length, and you know, the right width also. And I would need some feet on it to elevate it up a little higher. I found a really good piece of quality plywood. I think it's, how many ply is it? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 ply. Wow, that's a nice piece of plywood. So it's too long, so I could cut off strips on the end and then use those as the feet to elevate it up. So that's definitely a possibility. Then give it the black tar treatment and linseed oil to kind of make it the dark color. So I will keep this in mind. If I don't find a stand before the show, I'll have to definitely make one. Last night we got a really hard frost, and it did some damage to my outdoor trees. I'll show you what happened. Out here on this bench, my ash tree did not like the cold. You can see the leaves are kind of limp, not looking good. Some of them are okay, but generally it didn't like it. It's not going to hurt the tree. There's lots of leaves that have survived and it'll recover. Everything else did quite well on this bench. Even my Osage orange, there's a little bit of damage here, frost damage, but not much. My small leaf linden, the leaves are still kind of limping, but that'll definitely recover fine. Over here, the native maple did really well. The silver maples, no problem. The willows, no problem. Apple, no problem. The larch, there's no problem with those. The black maple, it's a little droopy, but that's okay. It'll recover fine. My Virginia creeper back here, it was sending out new leaves and they also got damaged. So again, that tree will recover. They're very, very vigorous. Over here, my mulberry. It survived the last frost quite easily and did well, but this time it got some black tips on it. But again, you know, these tips are long. It'll recover and grow again once the weather warms up. The field maple, the leaves are a little limp, but it looks fine. The blue ash, it also, the tips got a little frost damaged, but all the lower leaves look good. The chicken pin oak, it's doing all right. It had that damage from caterpillars, and now the leaves are a little limp from the frost, but it's doing fine. The Norway maple over here, no problem with it. The red maple, no problem with it. The European buckthorn looks fine. Now, it did have the aphids, so that's why the tips are kind of funny looking. The gray bark elm, that's all right, and the willows are fine. So that brings me to the northern bog forest here. I am going to put this in the show. So I'm going to bring it in the greenhouse. I want to do a lot of kind of prep work on it. Pruning of the moss, weeding. I want to keep the moss really green, and the greenhouse will help with that. A lot of the trees need pruning once again, especially the spruce. Now that they're coming out, they can use with some bud selection and pinching. So I'm going to bring that in the greenhouse. I'm going to try a stand out with it today. I have two possible stands that'll fit this size of pot. So I'll try both of them and see which one I like better with this forest. Here is a look at stand number one. This is an oak stand, and both of these stands are made by Matt, and I'll leave a link to his channel in the description below. Here is a look at the northern bog forest on the oak stand. I think it looks pretty good. The stand is a large stand, and it really, because of the light color of the stand and the dark pot, it really focuses your eye in on the forest. That's what it does to me anyway. I think it's a good combination. I think it really, I don't know, it enhances the forest, that's for sure. It looks good on a stand. So yeah, I think that's a nice combination. I would be happy to show the tree on this stand. I am going to try the other stand also. Here is stand number two. It's a maple stand. It's sort of that tiger striped maple. I got this wood for making violins long ago, and I thought, well, this is a good use for it. So this stand is taller. So I'll try the forest out on it and see how it looks. Here is a look at my bog forest on the maple stand. I think it also looks really good. It certainly looks ready for a show. This stand is a little higher, and I kind of like that. The surface of the stand is also, even though it's got the figured maple, it's also a little simpler. And the stand is very square and rectangular, and the pot is oval, and the trees are kind of conical. So you've got a lot of different shapes going on, and I think it all works together. Yeah, so I think out of the two stands, I'm kind of leaning towards this one. Yeah, it's I think it suits it really nicely. Either stand would look good, that's for sure, but I'm leaning towards this one. Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, at least I've got a stand for this giant pot, and it'll look nice in the show, I think. I was putting away the stands and I came across this maple one that Matt made. I thought I'd try it with my bird's nest spruce, and it sort of works. Like, it's not horrible, but it's not, it doesn't complement the tree. It's a stand, but it's disjointed. It's not harmonious. So I think I'll rule it out, but I just thought I'd show you what it looks like. I've got my bog forest back on my spinning tree bonsai turntable, and I have to give a shout out to Adrian who makes these. He's in Australia. He shipped it all the way to Canada for me, free of charge, so I really appreciate it. And the amazing thing is it's been working perfectly for all the years I've owned it. You can spin a large forest around, and it's worked, you know, perfectly from the day I got it. It's just an amazing turntable. I'm really happy with it. So thanks very much, Adrian. Your turntable is just awesome. I won't be doing the show prep to this forest on today's video. I'm going to leave it for another video. I think it's going to be a lot of work. There's a lot of new shoots that need pruning. The landscape needs tidying up and pruning also. I'm looking at it, just trying to decide, you know, do I need rocks in the landscape? I definitely want to define my deer paths here again, maybe a few through the forest. I want to prune, I'm going to leave the moss up front tall like this, and then as I go back in the planting, I'm going to prune it tighter and tighter, and that'll give me forced perspective. So the landscape will start off coarse in the foreground. As you go diminish in the distance, it'll get kind of smooth and even, so it'll give it a sense of perspective. I think that'll look really good. I'm going to clean up the trees also, the larch and the spruce. The larch, I'll be removing all the lower needles off the trees, getting some separation between the branches. I think that'll look good. The larch is getting its second flush of growth now, especially up top. Look at the vigor on the top of this one. Wow. Yeah, so they'll need pinching, pruning, yeah, general cleanup before the show. Yeah, I think it'll just be, going in and sort of super detailing the landscape, just checking everything, making sure nothing's out of place, and it's all looking really good. I've got my Chinese village penjing here in the greenhouse. The moss is greening up with the heat and humidity here, but the trees, I don't think they'll make it in time. They're not going to flush out before the show. I've only got just over 2 weeks, so I think this is a planting that'll have to be put in the fall show, not the spring show. I have the whole summer then to get it looking really, really good and to super detail it, paint the houses better. Yeah, so it'll be really fun getting this ready for the show. So for this show, this spring show, I've got my miniature bonsai on the bench here. I think that'll be really cool. I have my northern bog forest over here. That'll look nice in the show. Over here, I'll have my bird's nest spruce and possibly my thuja root over rock planting if that's looking good. Yeah, I think that's enough for the show. I think that'll keep me busy getting all those ready. I haven't begun fertilizing any of my trees yet, my outdoor trees, but I think today I will water and fertilize my bog forest So it does look nice and lush and green for the show. So I'll really spoil it until showtime. So everything's looking really, really good. So today it'll get its first watering with the fertilizer in the water. I always fertilize my trees with a powdered fertilizer that I add to my rainwater in my watering can, and I microdose the fertilizer. So every time I water my trees, I have a small amount of fertilizer in the water. So they're constantly being fed, but again, in very small amounts. Here's the fertilizer I'm using this year. It's Miracle Grow Plant Food 20-20-20, water soluble. So I'll show you how much I put in my 2-liter watering can. I'll show you how much I use. So I used to use Plant Prod, which was a Canadian fertilizer supplier, but I can't get that anymore. It was 20-20-20 with micronutrients. So here's about how much I put in with my 2-liter watering can. So you can see it's just a little bit of fertilizer with my water. I've got my 2-liter watering can full of water, so I'll add my fertilizer, stir it up. And this is rainwater. I don't want any, chlorine or anything in my water or lime. It's nice, clean rainwater. It doesn't leave stains on your pots or your roots or your trees or your moss. It's good water to use. So that's stirred up, and I'll water my trees with that. Because I water my trees with this dilute amount of fertilizer, I never have to worry about burning my roots, even on newly transplanted trees. Here I go. Okay, that's good. One of the big pluses of microdosing your fertilizer is that the trees always have fertilizer in with the water. So they always have fertilizer available to take in through the root system. If you're fertilizing like once a week, you fertilize on Monday, and maybe Monday night you get a heavy rainstorm, it washes all the fertilizer out of your soil. So for the rest of the week, your trees have no access to fertilizer. They're just in the pot with water. So microdosing ensures the trees always have fertilizer available for the roots. Another plus of mixing the fertilizer in with your water and fertilizing every day is if you notice the growth on your tree is getting too long and leggy, it's getting too vigorous. And I've had that happen where, the shoots start getting too long, too vigorous, the inner nodes are too long. It's just, growing with too much vigor. So I can immediately stop the fertilizer. I stop mixing it in with the water. I can water the tree heavily with rainwater, flushing any fertilizer out of the soil. And from then on, I can just water the tree instead of using water and fertilizer until the growth gets back under control. And then I can start adding fertilizer once again. Instead of mixing the fertilizer in with your watering can every day, you can also have a barrel full of rainwater and just add the right amount of fertilizer to the rain barrel and just dip your watering can in every day, and you're watering and fertilizing at the same time, microdosing that fertilizer. So that's another solution. You can use a pump if you want to use a hose. Put the sump pump in your rain barrel. You can pump out the water and fertilizer and use a spray wand to water your trees. The only trouble with that is it tends to use a lot of water, whereas the hand watering, I find it conserves your rainwater more, and that's important in the summer. If you get a drought where you don't get rain for like 6 to 8 weeks, it's really important to have that nice rainwater on hand. So I try and conserve my rainwater whenever possible. I don't like wasting it. I've already made quite a few videos for this bog forest, and that's because these forest plantings are a lot of work. You've got to keep your trees kind of controlled. Otherwise, they just all grow into each other, and your forest becomes a big blob of overgrown trees. And so if you are planting forests, they are beautiful to look at, and they're fun to work on, but they are a lot of work. There's a lot of trees in this forest, and as it gets more and more branching, and as it gets more and more refined, the work will increase in this forest. I'll have to be working on this forest even more often, keeping it even tighter controlled, getting it into that refinement stage eventually. So they are a lot of fun for us, but they're also a lot of work, but it's fun work. I'm going to finish today's video with some updates. The first update is the sugar maple forest. I had 4 trees that weren't leafing out, but since then another 2 have leafed out. So this one here and the one here. So now I'm down to 2 trees that don't show any signs of life, but there still is a possibility they will grow. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Down here in front of the heater, I have my 3 baobab trees. They're all leafing out now, even the large one. It's got new shoots coming out on it, which is exciting. The other 2, this one's kind of fully leafed out, and the other one is beginning to leaf out also. So I'm watering them like every 4 or 5 days, and I'm watering them with water and fertilizer. So this is the growing season for these baobabs, and I'm hoping this year they really, really grow now that they're in their own pots. Someone was asking about my crown of thorns, so I brought it out to the greenhouse today. Here it is. It's looking really good. It's the leaves have grown in since I last pruned it. I've got a line in there. Yeah, so it's looking really good. You can see the canopy filling out now. So it's only been out in the greenhouse here since yesterday now, so I think it'll really like the sunshine out here and begin growing with a lot of vigor soon. My cherry tree back here had all kinds of flowers on it this spring, and it's still got the remains of some flowers. But now I've got some cherries growing on it. I have 1, 2, 3 cherries on it. So that's exciting. In the corner over here is my Scots pine that's planted in that pot that Shani made. The candles have really extended and the needles are coming out on it now. And I was thinking, I think I'm going to just leave it grow, gaining lots of vigor, and then in fall I'll cut these new shoots back, leaving plenty of needles on the branch. So it'll get really vigorous this summer with this growth untouched. I'll prune it back in fall, and then in spring I should get a lot of back budding on it. So that's my plan for this tree. Down here is my lithops. So I don't think they're flowering, they're just splitting open, and I don't know what they do when they split open, if they grow larger or if the shells that are splitting open just dry up and fall off. I have no idea. But they are splitting open and revealing new stones, living stones underneath. So very interesting. I'm learning about the life cycle of these lithops, which is quite interesting. Over here I have my giant sequoia forest. So the one tree that was kind of still had its fall colors is greening up now, which is good to see. And all of the other trees are greening up too. I'm getting some strong growth at the tips, but I'm also getting new buds on some of the branches. So I think, once these tips start growing, I'll pinch them back, and hopefully that'll encourage the branches to continue growing so I don't lose my branches. That's the plan anyway. I'll see if it works. Over here, my forsythia planting is looking really good. I think all of the cuttings I planted have leafed out and are doing well, so they've obviously rooted. Someone told me I have to be careful because these forsythias will break a ceramic pot once they get too root bound, so I'll have to make sure I repot them at least every year. Beside that, I've got my juniper. It's doing really well. I got all kinds of new growth coming out on it. So I repotted this spring, bare rooted it, repotted it, and it's growing in really well now. So that's very good. I'm happy to see that. Down here on the floor of the greenhouse, I have my birch tree. So I repotted this, gave it quite a root pruning this year, and I also cut the top of the tree off. It was getting too tall. And it's growing in now with lots of vigor. You can see all the new shoots taking off. The new growth is really extending. So it's recovered from its repotting, which is good to see, and I think it'll be growing really well this summer. Over here I have my field maples. They're still all looking good except for one back there. That's the only one. Oh, two. No, that one's growing also. So I think I only lost one of them. Wow, that's amazing. You know, considering some of them had good roots and some of them didn't. And I did a fair amount of root pruning on them. So to only lose one little tiny one back there, that is amazing. That shows these trees are really, really tough. So I'm really looking forward. This is just prep work. All these field maples are going to go in a forest someday with my larger field maple, which is outside. My wisteria continues to grow like crazy. It's getting really, really tall now. So I gave that a real severe root pruning this spring, and it recovered and it's growing like crazy now. Behind it is a prickly pear cactus. It looks like all that is new growth. I don't think it's going to flower. It may flower on that new growth maybe over the summer, I'm not sure, but that's another plant. I'll learn about the life cycle of it as it grows into the future. Behind the juniper that Joey gave me is my Chinese elm. And you can see the shoots are really, really extending on it. And I've got to decide, well, how much do I want those to extend? I'm thinking quite a bit. I'll let them grow until it becomes impractical, till this tree takes up way too much space. When it goes outside, I don't think that'll be a problem. I can just let those shoots extend, but in the greenhouse here, it may be a problem. I will run out of space eventually, but the weather is supposed to warm up. Our chance of frost hopefully will disappear, but I'm not sure. So it might be one of those ones that I just have to put outside, and if there's going to be frost, bring it back into the greenhouse for the night. But yeah, I want to grow it. I mean, I did a lot of cuts on it, and I need those to heal. So growth heals pruning wounds, and it also grows roots. It didn't have the greatest root system, so I want to generate a lot of roots in the soil, so then next time I root prune it, I have a lot of choices of roots, which ones to prune away and which ones to keep. So this tree is in a growth phase for this year. Down here I have my tray of cuttings, and I mentioned in spring that just because the cuttings leaf out doesn't mean they've rooted. A cutting will leaf out anyway, and then those leaves will usually die off and the cutting will just go brown and die. I think by now anything that's still in leaf has rooted, because it's been quite a while now since these leafed out. So I can safely say that anything with leaves on it now has rooted and will grow. So I have a lot of Japanese maple cuttings in here that are leafed out and seem to be doing really well. I've got juniper cuttings. I've got trident maple cuttings, which are doing well. I've got my bald cypress cutting, the main shoot, it's leafing out now. So that's definitely rooted and growing. I did lose my boxwood back there. It's gone brown. That one didn't root. I'm not too disappointed about that, because I have like 2 trays of boxwoods growing. I have plenty for a forest, so I don't think I needed that one anyway. But yeah, everything's looking really good. I'm so happy that I have these little Japanese maple cuttings, because I would eventually like to add one to my bench over here. I think that would look really nice, a little Japanese maple growing in one of those Sophie pots. My rough bark Japanese maple here is doing really well in the greenhouse. A beautiful tree. It's just fantastic. So I'm just keeping it well watered, well fertilized, getting that root system really strong. This was from an air layer. And yeah, next spring it'll go in its own pot. I'll really enjoy getting all the trees ready for the spring show. It's kind of part of the art of bonsai, is getting your displays looking really nice. On tomorrow's video, I'm going to tackle my bog forest, pruning it up once again, and then I may have to revisit it before the show also, just before the show, to do any touch-ups any new growth that's come out, pinch it back and make it look as good as it can. So that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.